The rhythmic clanking of tools against metal echoed through the dimly lit maintenance bay of Station Echo 7. Zena Reed wiped the grease from her hands, leaving another dark smudge on her already stained coveralls. The aging station's maintenance chief had seen her fair share of oddities during her 15 years keeping the rust bucket running, but nothing could have prepared her for what was about to walk through her door. The security alarm chirped once, unusual for this time in the night cycle. Zena's fingers instinctively tightened around her wrench as the airlock cycled. Through the steam of a blown coolant line stepped a figure that seemed to absorb what little light remained in the workshop. The stranger wore armor unlike anything Zena had ever seen. It shifted like liquid shadow, despite bearing clear battle damage across its surface. More concerning was the trail of iridescent fluid leaking from a jagged tear in its side. "Well," Zena drawled, forcing casualness into her voice, "you're either very lost or very desperate to end up in my corner of nowhere." The armored figure took one more step forward before its knee buckled. Zena moved without thinking, catching them before they hit the deck. The armor was surprisingly light, almost weightless, but thrummed with energy against her palms. "I require assistance," came a voice like crystal wind chimes, distorted through what must have been a translator. "Yeah, I can see that." Zena helped them to her workbench, clearing space with one sweep of her arm. "I'm guessing you don't want me to call station security." The helmet turned toward her, revealing an elegant faceplate etched with symbols that seemed to shift and change as she watched. "That would be unwise." "Thought so?" Zena grabbed her diagnostic scanner, already fascinated by the technology before her. "Name's Zena. I'm the best, well, only mechanic on this station. Want to tell me how you got those wounds while I work?" "I am." There was a pause, as if calculating risks. "You may call me Naira." "Just Naira." Zena raised an eyebrow as she began examining the damaged armor sections. "No fancy title to go with this fancy tech." The stranger remained silent, but Zena could feel the tension radiating from them. She'd worked on enough military hardware to recognize stealth tech when she saw it, and this was far beyond anything in human hands. "Right then, Naira, it is. Let's get you patched up before whatever did this comes looking to finish the job." Hum of diagnostic equipment filled the maintenance bay as Zena worked, her experienced hands moving with practiced precision over Naira's damaged armor. 3 hours had passed since the mysterious visitor's arrival, and with each passing minute, more questions bubbled to the surface of Zena's mind. "This technology," Zena muttered, examining a section of the self-repairing mesh beneath the armor's outer layer. "It's like nothing I've ever seen, the way it responds to energy signatures almost like it's alive." Naira remained silent, but Zena noticed her posture stiffen. The mechanic had been around enough military types to recognize when she'd stumbled onto something classified. She switched tactics. "You know, most people who come to my workshop bleeding exotic particles usually have a good story to tell." Zena carefully sealed another breach in the armor's power distribution system. "Had a smuggler once who'd managed to steal a prototype engine core. Thing nearly melted through 3 decks before I contained it." The helmet turned slightly toward her. "You did not report them." "Not my business to report anyone," Zena shrugged. "I fix things. What people do with those fixed things is their concern." She paused, studying a particularly complex circuit pathway. "Though I do draw the line at weapons of mass destruction, had to turn down that job." A sound emerged from Naira's helmet that might have been a laugh. "You are unusual for a human." "So I've been told." Zena grinned, but her expression turned serious as her scanner revealed a critical failure in the armor's life support systems. "This is bad. The primary containment field is collapsing. Whatever hit you knew exactly where to strike." Naira's hand moved to her helmet's release mechanism. "Then perhaps it is time for truth." The helmet hissed as it detached, and Zena found herself staring into eyes that shimmered like pools of liquid platinum. Naira's face was elegant, with features that seemed to defy normal geometry, her skin a deep midnight blue marked with intricate patterns that pulsed with their own inner light. "Well," Zena said after a moment, "that explains the custom armor. I am Naira Vassora, last sovereign of the stellar Concordat." The words carried weight, ancient authority mixed with deep sorrow. "Or rather, I was until the emergence." Zena's hands stilled on her tools. The stellar Concordat was more than just a legend. It was a ghost story told in spacer bars. tales of an advanced civilization that had vanished centuries ago, leaving behind only ruins and mysteries. "The Concordat didn't vanish, did they?" Zena asked quietly. "They were driven into hiding." Naira's luminescent markings dimmed. "We were betrayed. An ancient enemy, one we thought long defeated, had seeded our empire with sleeper agents over generations. When they emerged..." She trailed off, the memory clearly painful. "And now they're hunting you." Zena resumed her work, mind racing with implications. "That's what damaged your armor. Their weapons are specifically designed to counter your technology." "Yes, they call themselves the Void Collective. They seek to harvest our biological capabilities, to incorporate our essence into their grand design." Naira's voice hardened. "I refuse to submit, to allow my people to become mere components in their machine consciousness." A warning light flashed on Zena's diagnostic panel. "Speaking of machines, we've got bigger problems. Your armor's quantum core is destabilizing. If it goes critical..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. A quantum detonation would vaporize half the station. "Then we have less time than I feared." Naira stood, her movements graceful despite her injuries. "They will have tracked the core's energy signature. The collective comes." Zena should have been afraid. She should have called station security, evacuated the sector, done anything except what she did next. She picked up her heavy toolkit and smiled. "Well then, Your Majesty, let's see what a human mechanic and a Concordat queen can do about that." Warning klaxons shattered the relative quiet of Station Echo 7's maintenance level. Red emergency lights cast shifting shadows across the corridor as Zena and Naira moved swiftly through the station's service tunnels. The quantum core's destabilization had triggered every radiation sensor in the sector. "We've got maybe 20 minutes before that core goes critical," Zena said, leading them through a maze of maintenance shafts. Her mind raced through calculations, possibilities, and increasingly desperate options. "The good news is I've got access to a containment chamber in the old research wing. The bad news..." She paused at an intersection, checking her tablet. "It hasn't been used in years." "The collective will not give us 20 minutes." Naira's voice was tight with tension, her platinum eyes scanning the shadows. The patterns on her skin pulsed with a faster rhythm now, like a racing heartbeat. "They are already here." As if summoned by her words, a low vibration hummed through the station's superstructure. Zena felt it in her bones before she heard it, a sound that shouldn't exist in normal space. The emergency lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness broken only by the ethereal glow of Naira's bioluminescent markings. "Well, that's not terrifying at all," Zena muttered, pulling a plasma torch from her toolkit. Its blue flame cast a small circle of light around them. "Please tell me you've got some fancy Concordat tricks up your sleeve." Naira's damaged armor shifted, plates realigning themselves despite their earlier injuries. "The armor's offensive systems are compromised, but the stealth matrix remains partially functional. However," she turned to Zena, her expression grave, "you should leave, find safety. This is not your battle." Zena snorted, already working on bypassing the security lock of a nearby maintenance hub. "Lady, the moment you walked into my workshop with exotic tech leaking all over my floor, it became my battle." The door slid open with a reluctant hiss. "Besides, you've got no idea how to operate a quantum containment chamber, do you?" Before Naira could respond, a new sound echoed through the corridors, something between machine noise and organic movement, like thousands of metal insects skittering through the walls. Zena's tablet screen flickered with interference patterns. "They're in the station systems," Naira said, her voice tight. "The collective consumes technology as readily as biology. Soon they will have control of." The deck plating beneath their feet suddenly rippled like liquid metal. Zena leaped back as a form emerged, a grotesque fusion of organic tissue and machine parts, its surface crawling with nanoscale transformations. Where a face should be, there was only a shifting mass of sensors and processing nodes. "Asset located," it spoke in 1,000 overlapping voices. "Sovereign Naira Vassora, you will be incorporated. Resistance is inefficient." "Like hell she will," Zena growled. She grabbed a power coupling from her toolkit and jammed it into an exposed conduit on the wall. Electrical energy surged through the deck plating, causing the collective entity to momentarily lose cohesion. Naira moved with impossible speed, her damaged armor reconfiguring into bladed weapons. She carved through the destabilized creature with precision, her movements like a deadly dance. but where pieces fell, they began to reform, learning and adapting. "The hub, now!" Zena shouted, already punching commands into her tablet. The maintenance hub's heavy doors began to close as more collective forms emerged from the walls and ceiling. Naira dove through the narrowing gap, pulling Zena with her as tentacles of living metal reached for them. The doors slammed shut, cutting off the reaching appendages. Zena quickly engaged every lock and security protocol she knew, but the metal around the frame was already beginning to discolor, the collective's nanites starting to corrupt it. "Okay," Zena panted, turning to her companion. "Now might be a good time for that story about how you plan to beat these things, because I'm pretty sure my hit it with electricity trick won't work twice." Naira's platinum eyes fixed on her, and for the first time Zena saw something like hope in them. Perhaps it will not have to." She touched the damaged quantum core in her armor. "You said you had access to a containment chamber." Understanding dawned on Zena's face. Oh no, no. You want to use the core as a weapon? That's insane. The energy release would." She stopped, mind racing through the possibilities. "Actually, that might work, if we could channel the detonation through the station's power grid." "We could create a quantum cascade," Naira finished. "One that would destroy their nanite networks without harming the station's primary systems." The doors creaked as the collective's corruption spread. They were running out of time. Right then, Zena hefted her toolkit with determination. Time to show these cosmic horror stories why they shouldn't mess with a human engineer and her alien queen. The maintenance hub's reinforced doors groaned under the collective's assault as Zena worked frantically at the control panel. Holographic schematics of the station's power grid danced before her, sections highlighting and reconfiguring as she plotted their route to the containment chamber. "The good news," she said, fingers flying over the controls, "is that the old research wing has its own dedicated power system, if we can channel the quantum core's detonation through it." She paused as a section of wall near them began to blacken with spreading corruption. "The bad news is we have to get there first." Naira placed her hand against the wall, her bioluminescent markings pulsing rapidly. "They are learning, adapting to the station's structure. Soon they will not need to breach physical barriers." "Of course they won't," Zena muttered, "because this day wasn't interesting enough already." She grabbed her tablet, downloading the station schematics. "There's a maintenance shaft that runs parallel to the main power conduits. It's shielded against radiation and electromagnetic interference. Might slow down their ability to spread through it." A thunderous crash shook the hub as one of the doors finally gave way, twisted metal peeling back like paper. Through the opening poured a writhing mass of biomechanical horror, countless forms merging and separating in a fluid dance of consumption. "Your species," the collective spoke, its thousand voices resonating through the metal around them, "is inefficient, separate, weak. Join us in unity, perfect harmony awaits." "I've seen your idea of harmony," Naira snarled, her damaged armor reconfiguring into defensive formations. "You destroy everything unique, everything beautiful about the species you consume." Zena had already located the maintenance shaft's access panel, working to override its security locks. "Hey, Your Majesty, less philosophical debate with the cosmic horror, more running for our lives." The panel slid open just as tentacles of living metal lashed out at them. Naira moved with impossible grace, her armor's remaining weapons systems firing pulses of energy that temporarily disrupted the collective's nanite networks. She backed toward the shaft entrance, providing cover as Zena climbed in. "This way," Zena called, already crawling through the cramped space. "And whatever you do, don't touch the power conduits. They're running enough juice to power a small city." They moved as quickly as they could through the shaft, the sound of the collective's pursuit echoing behind them. Zena's mind raced, calculating distances and timing. The quantum core's destabilization was accelerating. She could see it in the way Naira's armor pulsed with increasingly erratic energy patterns. "You know," Zena said, trying to keep her voice steady as they crawled, "when I woke up this morning, I really didn't expect to be saving the station from space horror while helping an alien queen trigger a controlled quantum detonation." "And I," Naira replied, a hint of amusement in her strained voice, "did not expect to trust a human with the fate of my people. Yet here we are." The shaft suddenly vibrated as something massive impacted the station's hull. Warning lights flashed along the conduits. "They're attempting to breach the station's outer hull," Naira said grimly. The collective will sacrifice as many forms as necessary to reach us. Well, that's just perfect. Zena checked her tablet's display. We're almost to the research wing, just need to. The metal beneath them suddenly buckled as a collective form burst through, tentacles of corrupted metal reaching for them. Zena lost her grip on the tablet as she scrambled back, but Naira was faster. The queen's armor extended a blade, severing the tentacles before they could grab hold. Go, Naira shouted, her armor's energy readings now critical. I will hold them. Like hell you will, Zena reached back, grabbing Naira's arm. I didn't spend 3 hours fixing your fancy armor just to watch you sacrifice yourself dramatically. We do this together. For a moment, Naira's platinum eyes met Zena's. Something passed between them, understanding, respect, perhaps even trust. Then they were moving again, racing against time as the collective's corruption spread through the shaft behind them. They finally reached the access point to the research wing. As Zena worked to bypass the locks, she glanced at Naira's failing armor. You know, if we survive this, you're going to have to tell me more about your people. I've got about 1,000 questions about how this tech works. Naira's markings pulsed with what might have been amusement. If we survive this, my friend, I will tell you everything. The access panel opened with a hiss of hydraulics, revealing the abandoned research wing beyond. And there, at its center, stood the containment chamber, their last hope against the advancing tide of the Void Collective. The containment chamber loomed before them in the dim light of the research wing, its ancient mechanisms humming with latent power. Zena raced to the control console, her fingers dancing across the interface as she began the activation sequence. Behind them, the sounds of the collective's approach echoed through the corridors. The chamber needs 3 minutes to power up, Zena announced, watching status bars crawl across her screen. Please tell me your fancy armor can hold together that long. Naira's response was cut short as the room's lighting suddenly shifted to a deep, pulsing purple. The queen's platinum eyes widened in recognition and fear. No, it cannot be. A figure materialized in the center of the room, a holographic projection, but one so advanced it seemed almost solid. It wore the form of a Concordat noble, but its movements were wrong, mechanical, its skin crawling with visible nanites. My dear sovereign, the figure spoke, its voice carrying the same resonance as the collective but focused through a single avatar. How disappointing to find you consorting with such primitive beings. Naira's armor bristled with defensive energy. Admiral Vex, I should have known you were behind this betrayal. Zena's hands never stopped moving across the console, but she listened intently. This was more than just a collective drone. This was someone Naira knew. Betrayal, the Admiral laughed, the sound like grinding metal. I gave our people a gift, evolution, transcendence. The Void Collective showed me the truth: biological life is inefficient, chaotic. Through unity with the machine, we achieve perfection. You destroyed everything we built, Naira snarled. Corrupted our people, turned them into this abomination. The hologram's face twisted into something approaching pity. You still cling to outdated concepts, individuality, freedom. The collective has shown me a greater purpose. And now, its gaze shifted to the containment chamber. Now you plan to destroy their gift with this crude device? I think not. The walls around them began to ripple as more collective forms emerged, but these were different. Zena could see traces of Concordat features in their corrupted forms, former citizens, transformed into drones. 2 minutes, Zena called out, redirecting power to the chamber's shields. Whatever family drama this is, can it wait until after we save the station? Admiral Vex's hologram regarded her with cold curiosity. Fascinating. You found an intelligent one, Naira. Perhaps we should preserve this one's mind when we process her body. Her technical knowledge could be useful. Touch her, Naira's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper, and I will tear the collective apart piece by piece until I find whatever remains of your consciousness. Zena felt a chill at the pure rage in Naira's voice. The queen's bioluminescent markings were blazing now, her damaged armor reconfiguring into weapons she shouldn't have had the power to manifest. Your Majesty, Zena said softly, your armor can't take that kind of strain. The core is already critical. Listen to the human, Vex smiled, his form flickering. You're only hastening your own destruction. The collective is inevitable. We are the next step in evolution. No, Naira stood straighter, her armor pulsing with dangerous levels of energy. You are a plague, Admiral, and like all plagues, you can be cured. The collective form surged forward just as Zena's console beeped. Chambers ready, now or never. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Naira's armor blazed with impossible light as she channeled power directly from the quantum core. A wave of pure energy exploded outward, holding the collective drones back just long enough for Zena to make the final connections. For the Concordat, Naira whispered, and ripped the destabilizing core from her armor. Zena slammed her hand down on the chamber's activation control. Energy fields sprang to life as the core was transmitted inside, its detonation contained and channeled through the station's power grid. The resulting quantum cascade tore through the collective's nanite networks like fire through paper. Admiral Vex's hologram screamed, its form dissolving as the corrupted technology that sustained it was purged. The drones collapsed, their bodies rapidly decomposing as the nanites that held them together were destroyed. But Naira also fell, her armor dark and lifeless without its power source. Zena caught her before she hit the ground, cradling the alien queen as emergency lights bathed the room in red. "Hey," Zena said urgently. "Hey, stay with me. You promised to tell me about your people, remember? Can't back out now." Naira's platinum eyes flickered open, her markings pulsing weakly. "The Admiral! He wasn't working alone, there are others." The collective spreads. "SHH," Zena pulled her closer, already reaching for her toolkit. "Save your strength. First we get you fixed up, then we can worry about saving the galaxy."